embarrassing. Really embarrassing. But anyway, doesn't change my life.
Even Codemasters are taking the piss with this career mode now. We've just found out overnight that there has been a glitch with the game the whole time, referring only to the McLaren Honda and its engine upgrades. Basically, all the engine upgrades we put on the car so far this season haven't actually applied to the car. So, that's a big kick to the teeth, isn't it? After we spent the whole season upgrading the engine, in actual fact, it hasn't worked this entire time. Welcome to the Brazilian Grand Prix. As you can tell, I'm pretty pissed off.
So it's time for qualifying here at Interlagos, the Autodromo Jose Carlos Pache. The teams have completed their preparations and are just waiting for the pit lane to open before they take to the track.
Right, it's not going to be easy getting into the next qualifying session, but we know you'll give it your all.
Here we are then for qualifying. We're just going to get on with the job as we always do. I found it actually quite surprising to hear that news. At first I thought, you know, there's no way that the engine upgrades haven't actually gone on the car. I've genuinely felt some progression with this car. Maybe it's just the fact that everyone else in the field has been running with older engines and we've taken a lot of grid penalties to get fresher engines, and maybe that's the difference between us being slightly more comfortable versus the rest of the field, simply because we have slightly fresher engines than everyone else. But either way, qualifying for the Brazilian Grand Prix. This is not going to be a particularly competitive track for us today. Normally, I always excel here and always look to get the win, but I just think that is completely off the cards. If we can get in the points in this race weekend, then that would be a massive success for us. But so far in qualifying, we're in P18. Due to the lack of power, I was completely just overdriving the car, just pushing the car to its absolute limits. On this middle run here, I was actually down on my previous best, and I was just trying to make up for it in that final corner. Overstepped the mark, got a tyre into the grass, and that was the end of that lap, unfortunately. So we're going to dust ourselves off, head back to the pit lane, and get on a fresh set of super soft tyres to bolt on at the end of the session. Now, we've got to hopefully beat our teammate Alonso if we can. That'll put us a long way towards getting first team driver. We are in the purple region, so beating him today will basically secure that for the rest of this season. Now, yeah, P18, 4/10 away from Fernando, I believe it is. But yeah, that's a long way to be behind your teammate at a track like Brazil. We definitely need to be doing better. 30 seconds to go in the session now, and we're starting our final run. Looks to be fairly tidy so far, up by 2/10 as we head through the middle sector. Yeah, we need about 3 to 4/10 in order to topple our teammate Fernando. We got a little bit of slipstream off the Force India starting this lap, but as you can see, he's just absolutely gapped us over the course of this lap. Hasn't really got away in the middle sector though, so that is fairly encouraging. But despite running with like 5 wings to compensate for the lack of straight line speed, it didn't really help us in qualifying. 18th place, 2.4 seconds away from the pace setter. Don't even know who got pole. It was probably one of the Mercedes. They seem to be pretty darn dominant around this racetrack. But yeah, despite the reduction in downforce, we're actually slower than what we were versus our pace in Mexico. We were only 1.6 seconds away from the pole setter, which is yeah, pretty alarming considering Brazil is a shorter lap, much shorter than Mexico. But either way, that has been qualifying. Hopefully in the race we can move forward, as we always do. So let's see how we go.
With so much on the line here today, I can't help but shake the feeling that we're going to have a bit of pushing and shoving, Anthony Davidson, especially into turn 1 this afternoon.
Well, we do see a fair amount of that here at Interlagos, Crofty. It's a tricky braking zone, of course, as you're heading downhill into the Centre S, which always makes it easy to lock the inside front and run a bit wide. We've seen a number of occasions over the years with someone from the leading group taking a bit of a knock on the first lap and having to recover. That's one of the reasons we've had so many exciting championship fights here. Hopefully, though, it'll be a clean start, of course, but as you say, I wouldn't be too surprised if it's not.
Okay, so here we are on the grid of the Brazilian Grand Prix, and as always with this race, we have some rain set to hit at the back end of the Grand Prix, which is definitely going to spice things up. We're going to switch to the 2-stop and make the most of some fresher, softer tyres to hopefully make us more competitive for the start of this race. Team radio.
Radar is clear. Weather is looking good for now.
And it looks like no rain is currently on the horizon, at least for the first half of the Grand Prix, which is exactly what we want to hear, because we want to make the most of the second set, or both the sets of the super soft tyres we're getting on the car. Now, going back to the upgrades, because they haven't actually kicked in, once they do set in, and I'm hoping maybe at the start of Season 2, we will be so much more competitive than what we're showing in this first season. So I'm really looking forward to getting underway with the new season. But either way, it's time to get underway with the Brazilian Grand Prix, and it is a not really that great start, it must be said. Down to P10 as we were overtaken briefly by Esteban Ocon. We lunged both the Red Bulls as we run through turn 1, and we go back into P11 as Esteban Ocon gets us back around the outside. So it's been an okay start. We still have our front wing. We've been fairly lucky in the way of first lap incidents, so yeah, it's good. Always good to survive the first couple of corners, especially in a slower car where things quite often happen. You often get mugged by cars left, right, and centre. But either way, holding down P11, we've got a Williams right behind us, a Force India in front, and we actually get back in front of one of the Red Bulls ever so slightly there, and back into P10. So yeah, we have a really jumbled up grid. We took a fresh gearbox penalty as well, just because I didn't think the gearbox would make it through the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix very cleanly. So I thought I'd take the penalty now and make the most of a fresher gearbox for this race. But yeah, either way, we have once again a really scattered grid. We try and go back up the inside of Daniel Ricciardo. Verstappen really didn't help out his teammate there by getting a really bad run through the center S's. And now we run side by side with the Red Bull driver into turn number 4. We have a Williams possibly going up the inside there. He might even get Ricciardo in the same move. No, it's actually Ocon. My apologies. But either way, Ricciardo loses 2 spots, and I imagine he won't be smiling anymore. Lap 4, we can see Verstappen catching up to one of the Saubers. I did say the grid was really jumbled up. We had Alonso starting in like P5 or something ridiculous like that. So he's making the most of the track position. And hopefully he can just continue to march forward. This is really what's given us the opportunity to score points regularly in the back half of this season, is just the amount of track position we've had as a team. We kind of find our own rhythm, our own pace, and we try and keep out of battles as much as we can, as you know, the other teams in the midfield get stuck in with each other, you know, down the order, and that really makes things much easier for us. Lap 8 now, you can see both the Red Bulls going side by side down the straight. I kind of blocked off Verstappen, I believe, but he's still got his teammate back around the outside. Ricciardo's actually got back in front now. It's squabbling left, right, and centre for the 3 of us, and Ricciardo gets me back up the inside into turn 4, have to leave the space, and that is that. Yellow flag, though, through the first sector. Not too sure who that was. It must have been Romain Grosjean, because he's now out of the Grand Prix. Could we potentially see a safety car? That wouldn't be too bad in terms of our race strategy. But either way, we have one of the Red Bulls going back up our inside again. This is Verstappen. He takes a little lunge into turn 4. We have to leave him the space once again through turn 5, just like we did to Ricciardo, and that is that. Hopefully, we can follow Verstappen through the field. He's going to be approaching Marcus Ericsson up next. No, he's not, because I've just dive-bombed him into the middle sector. Thank you very much. I pulled a Verstappen on Verstappen. Or is it a Ricciardo on Verstappen? Either way, both the Red Bull drivers are pretty proficient in overtaking maneuvers, and yeah, we're just giving each other a bit of a lesson here as we continue to fight with Verstappen here in this Brazilian Grand Prix. 10 laps in already, and yeah, we're a third way through the race. It's absolutely mad. We're getting ready for a pit stop now, as the super soft tyres aren't feeling the best. I was really starting to slide around under brakes, and wasn't really lying down the best amount of traction out of the final corner, and that was leaving me really weak. So we're going to make the most of an undercut here. Super soft tyres, and we should emerge in some pretty clear air to make the most of. So as we rejoin the track, Hamilton's in P17. He must have made a stop, but either way, that does look pretty dire for the Mercedes driver. I believe we have the Mercedes at the back in this race, whereas they were at the front in Mexico, and Ferrari were at the back trying to make their way through. So it's kind of been a bit of a role reversal for the front runners, and that could prove very interesting for the championship. Raikkonen is pretty much in the box seat to win this one. As long as he doesn't DNF, I think he will have this one in the bag. But either way, back to our race. We've got Esteban Ocon Or is it Perez? Yes, it is Perez. Going up the inside into turn 1. We try and get him back in a counter-attacking move, and we hold onto the position.
Fernando's P3 right now. Our gap to our teammate is 22.2 seconds. They're on old softs. The time last lap was a 1 minute 15.4.
So Nando's making the most of a great start so far. It's still holding down P3. He hasn't made a stop yet in this race, whereas a lot of people around him will have. He did start on the soft compound tyres, and if he stretches it long enough, he just might be able to make it to the end of until the end of this dry period. If I just said that, that's worse than slurs from F1 2013. That really is. But if Fernando stays out till the dry period, until the rain period, sorry, he's going to be absolutely set for this race, and well and truly going to get a top 5. But either way, for us, we're having a much tougher time of things. We are constantly battling. It's either Red Bulls, Force Indias, Williams, absolutely everyone, you name them, and we battle with them so far in this race. We've now got Ocon in the mix as well. I believe he undercutted his teammate, and that's why he's now the lead Force India out of the two. We now got Daniel Kvyat, our new rival once again. He was our rival earlier on in the season, and now he's back for some more vengeance. Speaking of vengeance, we get some on Sergio Perez briefly. Can we hold it around the outside and get the spot back? Not quite. Don't really have the, I don't know, traction to out-drag a Force India through the middle sector, which is pretty unfortunate. But yeah, Ocon, I believe it was, overshot the first corner. I'm not too sure if you noticed that. Meanwhile, Fernando Alonso made his first pit stop, and he is on the medium tyres. Why have you gone on to medium tyres when the rain is only 5-10 minutes away at maximum? That is a really silly decision there from Fernando Alonso. You can see the rain is already hitting, so those mediums are going to be absolutely pointless in these conditions. But either way, we've got Kvyat going around the outside through the start-finish straight, and he goes into the top 10. Can he hold on to the position, though? We're going to do our best to hang it around the outside, though. The racing line, essentially, now is going to be the best place on the track. You know, trying to attempt any kind of overtaking move is going to be utterly pointless, as anywhere off the racing line is just going to be way too wet, and just there's going to be no grip there, essentially. So it's going to be OP as hell for us just to hold on to our position if we can. We had Ocon there really struggling for, I think it was brakes. He kept overshooting corners, and he's now gone a lap down after his first mistake of overshooting turn 1. But we're coming into the pits now at the end of this lap. We're going to go onto the intermediate tyres. We've got Valtteri Bottas as well following us into the pit lane. So it's pretty slow going for the Mercedes. He's only taken 21 laps to just get outside the top 10. Maybe he's made an extra stop than us in this Grand Prix, who knows. But onto the intermediate tyres now. It looks like it was a fairly smooth stop. The exit of the box, though, wasn't so smooth. We held for about a second there, even though no one was in the fast lane, which is pretty annoying. But we rejoin on the track in effective P13, make that 14th place now as Valtteri Bottas overtakes us round the outside. We try and get him back, though, up the inside. We're losing the back end like absolute mad. People are in the pit lane as well. We get the spot back off of Bottas, and I think we might be back inside the top 10 after everyone else has made their stop for the Inters. So for the next 13 laps in this Brazilian Grand Prix, it's down to us to hold on to one singular point, and I don't rate my chances. I really don't. How are we going to keep a Mercedes behind for 13 laps? I don't know.
We should see heavy rainfall on track in about 10 minutes.
Okay, so things, if they weren't already spicy enough, we're going to have some heavy rain towards the end of this Grand Prix as well, and whoever makes the switch onto the wet tyres could be a real winner in this race. Though trying to hold on to the track, trying to hold on to the steering wheel, in fact, seems to be too much of a task right now, let alone trying to keep a Mercedes at bay. We're doing our absolute best to hold on to this singular point that we have right now. It just means so much. I'm pretty much willing to risk the rest of my race in order to stay in this position if I have to. So we'll see how we go. I mean, if we fall outside the points, then what's the point of even pressing on anymore? But 10 laps to go. Valtteri seems to be really threatening in a straight line, as you expect him to be. It just seems that our exit off of the final corner and off of turn number 3 seems to be fairly decent, and we actually managed to break out a little bit of a gap as well through the middle sector, which is really saving our bacon in this race. I've done so well to keep him at bay for as long as I have right now. Again, up the inside this time, Valtteri Bottas, and he doesn't quite get the move done. Somehow, this intermediate weather, I don't know what it is, it's just keeping us in front at the moment, and Valtteri pits on the next lap. Maybe he just got too frustrated being stuck behind me, or maybe he's even gone to the full wets. Though it must be said though, I don't think the wets was the right decision. It never really got to the stage where it was heavy rain and we just stayed out for the majority of the race. Someone else also pitted during the last 10 laps or so, and that promoted us up to P9. Sebastian Vettel takes victory of the Brazilian Grand Prix. Kimi Raikkonen home in second as well for a Ferrari 1-2. So those guys have won the drivers and the constructors. Us though, it's like our 4th or 5th points finish in a row in this McLaren with 0 upgrades. So I will absolutely take that.
There were questions at the start of the season as to whether this package could really go all the way, but there's no question anymore. What a special year it's been. And here they are now, the new Formula One World Drivers' Champion. So here they come now, out onto the podium. Wherever you go, anywhere in the world, the prancing horse flags are dominant in the grandstands, and they're out in force again today. It's Ferrari on the top step once more.
So there we go, chaps. That is the end of the championship, essentially. Kimi Raikkonen takes second place, and with that, the Constructors' Championship for Ferrari, but more importantly, the Drivers' Championship for himself. His first championship since his inaugural one in 2007, I believe. So it's been a long time between drinks, 10 years, but Raikkonen has finally done it. He opened the season so well. 5 or 6 wins in a row, and from there I think that the championship was pretty much sewn up, avoiding any kind of disaster halfway through or near the end of the season. He wasn't going to be stopped. For us though, another fairly consistent race. I don't feel like it was as much of an achievement as the Mexican Grand Prix. With that race I really had to earn that a couple of points, whereas this one I just kind of held it in there all tough and just tried to be as consistent as what I could. Yes, I did very well to hold off against Valtteri Bottas, but at the same time, he didn't put up too much of a fight apart from the old overtake into turn 1 and turns 4. Apart from that, it was, I don't know, fairly easy to keep him behind. Though if it was going to be in the dry, it would have been a completely different story altogether. But in the end though, 9th place, probably my worst finish at Brazil, it must be said, which is pretty disappointing. But going forward into future seasons, hopefully that is the absolute worst race finish we'll ever have at Brazil, and we can knock up those podiums and wins that we're so accustomed to. Resource points are up to 910 now. Like I said, with the engine upgrades, there's no point doing any further ones this season. They're all just major upgrades, and also they're not going on the car right now. So until Codemasters, fix this glitch that's happening right now, we're going to be devoting our resource points to the chassis and also the aerodynamic upgrades. But that is the Brazilian Grand Prix. We now have a team update.
Hey, you'll like this. I just got out of a meeting with the boss and, well, congratulations. You've done a great job. Here,